Our question at this time asks a very serious and sober question, and relative to the eternal soul of so many. You know, in this country, every minute there are 3 lives taken on average. And that comes through the scourge and the sin of abortion, where folks are taking the lives of little children, though they're yet in the womb. Someone has asked, what is the eternal fate of a child that has been killed by an abortion? And that's a good question to ask, and it's a serious question. I believe probably the background, if I can assume a little bit, I believe the background is probably from the fact that in our society there's so much Calvinism that people have been convinced that a child born into this world is born a sinner. And so folks are concerned about the little child and they're being guilty of Adam's sin. So let me assure you in the beginning that nothing could be further from the truth. It is not true that children are born with Adam's sin. That does not happen. It is not that way. And I can go to the book of Genesis and show it to you. Because in the book of Genesis in chapter 4, Adam's own children, here Cain is under discussion. And after Cain and Abel had offered a sacrifice, God was not pleased with Cain's sacrifice. Cain was upset. God speaks to him in Genesis chapter 4 and says, if thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted, but if thou do not well, he said, sin lies at the door. And he said, and unto thee shall be his desire, and it shall rule over thee. Now, when you look at that, Genesis 4 verse 7, why didn't God just go ahead and say, listen, sin is ruling over you right now, and that's why you got it wrong? That's not what he said at all. He spoke to Cain as a free moral agent. He spoke to Cain as someone who had the choice between right and wrong and good and evil. And he said, if you do well, you'll be accepted. And if you don't do well, that's the time that sin lies at the door, ready to pounce or ready to get you, if you will. And there you see a great difference, don't you? And so the idea of a little baby being born in sin or born guilty of Adam's sin, why, Adam's own children weren't born in sin. So how could someone today be born in sin? But I'll give you another example. In the book of Ezekiel chapter 18 and verse 4, and Ezekiel 18 and verse 20, both verses in that chapter say that the soul that sins, it shall die. And he goes on and says in Ezekiel 18:20, the Father shall not bear the iniquity of the Son, neither shall the Son bear the iniquity of the Father. The righteousness of the righteous shall be upon him. The wickedness of the wicked shall be upon him. As you look to the New Testament, you'll see very much the same thing happening, where God holds individual people accountable for their own sins, not for someone else's sin. And so whenever you think about a little child, in James chapter 1, for example, 14 and 15, he says there concerning temptation and sin, he said, a man is drawn away, every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust and enticed. And that lust, when it hath conceived, bringeth forth sin. Sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. James tells us that it's man's own sin, own lust rather, that brings sin. His own lust, not Adam's lust. It's his own lust. It's not the fact he was born in sin. See that? In fact, the Bible tells us this, that Romans 3:23, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Not all are born in sin, all have sinned, Romans 3:23, and come short of the glory of God. And many other passages we could look at, no question, that would show us this truth. Man is not born in sin. So you go back to our question concerning the little baby that was aborted, that was killed. Here's this little baby. What is the eternal destiny of that one? Thankfully, the only positive I see in this is the fact that little child is safe. He's not a saved person, but he is safe because that child has never committed a sin, has never done wrong, has never been unrighteous, has never done anything like that. And that soul, the Bible teaches, goes to God's care and keeping. And that's the only positive I see in this terrible scourge of the whole thing. But it is true, a little child, a little baby like that is not lost. He is not doomed and damned to hell, but rather he is safe with God and is one who is without sin and never will experience sin at all.